Hello, and welcome to In the Court of the Wenton King. Because we're going to review the Voyage. You have listened to this, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Voyage of the Acolyte by Steve Hackett. Yeah. 1974. Recorded 2 weeks after the end of the Lamb Tour. I didn't realise. I never looked at the date, and I always assumed it was between the Lamb and Selling England. And it sounds like it is, you know.
Yeah, no, I assume that as well.
But then, of course, there's the thing about Hackett not feeling like he had much input on the Lamb. You know, the Lamb is overwhelmingly the three of them. Yeah, so Urban Dictionary, the bastion of truth and meaning, says that the dregs of the earth... Oh no, wait, that's very good. Where's... I've lost it. Hang on. Oh, yeah. I've genuinely lost it.
I've got that light on.
But yeah, I mean, this is nothing at all like the Lamb. But I don't know, maybe to the layman, it's a load of arpeggios again. I mean, yeah, but and you know, Hairless Heart. It definitely sounds like Hairless Heart. People consider it to be the missing Genesis album. You know, people love this album. I think it's his most loved album. I don't really agree with that. But this is his first solo album, and it's the only one while he was still in Genesis, and it probably does sound more Genesis than his other stuff. I haven't heard a lot of his other stuff, to be honest. It doesn't sound more Genesis than Genesis Revisited or something. Really good. Yes, it is really good. And it's pastoral textures, it's that stuff. Inevitably, it's Genesis meets Camel. Or isn't that Camel? I mean, it's a lot more like Camel because there's more guitar. So the question is, does he carry the spirit of Genesis? Does he carry... Hang on. Does he carry the spirit of Genesis? You've got Phil and Mike on there. I think Phil is on all of it. I think maybe Mike. I don't know whether Mike Rutherford played all the bass. Maybe he did.
I love the fact that Phil Collins is known for drums and vibes. Percussion vocals.
Probably not. This is Steve Hackett. That's his thing there, which is part of Genesis, and you recognise it's part of it. But no, the Genesis isn't there. Because, of course, the one person who isn't there is Tony Banks. Interestingly, Tony Banks isn't involved as well. Is that a thing? Or is he just too busy because he writes all the songs? At this point, he's writing Trick of the Tail, the whole album on his own. So the other question is it a guitarist's album? Is it the guitarist comes out of the band, who's not the main writer? So is it like cool bits and pieces again? Does it sound disparate and bits and pieces because that bit's been taken out of that band and put on here? Or was he, even at this early stage, able to do something more sort of complete, standing on its own? And I think a bit of both. I think the first and last tracks are absolutely fantastic. The rest of it, some good bits and pieces. So the rest of it sounds bits and pieces-y, which is great. But the first and last tracks are awesome. I think that's what it is. That.
Yeah, I mean, solo albums are interesting creatures, aren't they? It's very difficult for a member of a band to come away and do something that's not seen as a footnote of the band, almost like an extension of what the band's doing.
Yeah.
And given what he said about his frustration of his input into Genesis, there's almost a temptation to see this as him sort of showcasing what he can do and what his input has been into Genesis. So listen to this, guys. This is what I do. Maybe I should get a little bit of credit for it, or maybe I should be involved a little bit more. Don't know. I mean, I bloody love Genesis. Yeah. I mean, they're one of all the bands we reviewed, they've been one of the biggest surprises to me, because my experience with Genesis before we went into this was 80s Genesis.
Well, yeah. So how could it possibly be? A lot of people say,
what the hell's this?
Oh my god, this is
the class warrior thing in me gets me a little bit. I mean,
they're very partial.
The Charterhouse faction. Yeah.
There's only two of them left, actually, by this point. I mean,
yeah.
Peter's gone.
Peter Gabriel.
Peter Gabriel isn't very Charterhouse. It's the other two who are incredibly posh.
And you get that I mean, just listening to them in interviews and stuff like, you get that definite sense that these guys are bred for
being accountants, bankers.
No, they're bred for being sort of directors of companies. Heartless CEOs, absolutely no empathy whatsoever. Casually raking bucket loads of cash from privatised nationwide industry.
Yeah, political play.
And Steve
hear
Hackett
it in their voices.
Yeah. Steve Hackett and Phil Collins, I would imagine they would have really struggled with it. I mean, I don't know how Phil Collins put up with it, you know. Maybe they recognised how fundamental he was to the band as a drummer. Obviously,
they literally couldn't play without it.
So maybe he got a bit stiff. He also seems to have the personality of being able to step away and just go along with it. You know, he's a guy who just wants to make music at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Steve Hackett, there is I'm picking up sort of like a personality trait which I didn't quite expect, because he says he read an advert in Melody Maker, and he went and applied for the band and he got the job, but he wanted to make different music, you know. I assume King Crimson-y type, really cutting edge type stuff. But actually this sounds like quite an artistic piece. There's a guy there sort of saying quite an empathetic piece. I mean, there's like Hands of the Priestess and the Tower Struck Down. It doesn't, although the music is different, the actual tone feels very, very, I would almost say quite woolly, and not particularly cutting edge, although A Tower Struck Down sounds a little bit like a very tame lark's tongue in aspect, sort of.
I suppose so, yeah.
Yeah, it's trying to be heavy, but it feels very, very ploddy.
I mean, I suppose by this point he knows who he is.
Yeah.
Whereas when he says he answered an advert in Melody Maker, but I think he made an advert in Melody Maker as well, saying he wants to push back the boundaries, etc., etc. And at that point, really, he didn't know who he was. I think that's what it is. And at this point, he's found himself, which is basically Genesis type stuff. Really, even his solo stuff, really, is very much in that vein.
Yeah, I mean, it does almost feel impression like Hands of the Priestess. It sounds a bit like Sailing England by the Mountain. Was it Dance of the Moonlight?
Dancing with the Moonlit Night.
Dancing with the Moonlit Night. Sounds a bit like that with the flute and stuff like that, which I can understand because, you know.
Well, he was central to that.
Yeah, I mean that
motif. That's his.
That amazing guitar solo in that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can imagine thinking, well, why can't I have that? Why is that going to be Genesis?
Oh yeah, and everyone thinks Peter Gabriel wrote it. Peter Gabriel's like, no, didn't.
Well, wasn't it the flute solo just played by the guitar? And Tony Banks said he wrote the flute solo.
Which one are we talking about? The Dancing with the Moonlit Night? Or are we talking about Further Fifth?
Oh, sorry, Further Fifth, I'm on about.
Yeah, I think the melody was written by Tony Banks, I think. Yeah, but that's not really the point, is it? It's him playing it.
Yeah, it's him playing that makes it work. Okay, glad we got that confusion sorted. Yeah, Further Fifth, sorry.
But Dancing with the Moonlit Night, he wrote that. Well, obviously, it's just Steve Hackett in it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's better than I expect. I mean, my impression of solo albums are that they're generally not as good as the band stuff.
Some of the parts.
Yeah, but I mean, this is actually quite good. It's perfectly listenable. It's not different enough to pull it away from Genesis, to pull him away from Genesis.
Yes.
And I think that's the problem, you know.
Yeah. So you're right. Yeah, and it's exactly that thing. It's a footnote, isn't it? Yeah. It's not the missing Genesis album. It is a footnote. But obviously that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, brilliant. You know, it's not like there's something wrong with doing that. Mm-hmm. We know these albums so well. Oh, there's this other one as well. Would you like to hear that? Yeah. We've not said. The first track and the last track, Ace of Wands, is very, very Camel. There's a fusioniness to it because it's guitar-y and it's stuff. And I think Tony Banks would have been the one to shut that down angrily. Not songy enough, I suspect. And of course, Shadow of the Elephant. I wanted to make sure I got that in before you did. That's how you have to say it. It's awesome. It's as good as Genesis. And it turns out Genesis did rehearse it during the Foxtrot sessions, actually. Or maybe only the end section, I don't know. But I mean, that shows that the fact they didn't use that for 3 albums shows the power structure in the band is suffocating. But yeah, Shadow of the Elephant. Everyone remembers the last bit, but it's only there's a whole thing to it. But people remember the big epic ending. It's an awful lot like Birdman from MacDonald and Giles, which would have been on the second King Crimson album had they stayed in King Crimson. You know, all that stuff. Brilliant. You've got to listen to the 17-minute version, though, really. I think the 11-minute version, it goes away before, it's like, oh my god, and then it stops. It fades. But yes, I mean, this CD, which is not that old, 2005. I bet I bought that when it came out, actually, that particular remaster. It's got 2 bonus tracks. So you've got a live version of Ace of Wands and 17-minute Shadow of the Elephant.
Okay, do you think it's sort of, do you think he's setting down a mark here? Sort of saying to the guys, come on guys, we've got to be more involved. Look what I can do.
Listen to me, I'm good.
Because it is, he said, was it Trick of the Tail that was next, did you say? Yeah. He did say, I was creatively burnt out because I've just done a solo album, so I couldn't contribute very much.
Yeah, but Tony Banks had written the album anyway, so if everyone just came in. And actually, Dance on a Volcano, the first section of Dance on a Volcano, that was before he'd arrived in the studio, and the 3 of them wrote that, interestingly. And then he came in, and I imagine the stuff when it gets going that's like Dancing in the Moon at Night, that's more Hackett, because then you get the Hackett, I wanted to say Bruford actually, Collins. Hackett Collins thing is that fast middle bit, isn't it? Just like Dancing in the Moon at Night, that's that.
I didn't like Trick of the Tail, did I?
No, you didn't. No, yeah, I'm surprised you don't like Dancing on a Volcano. I can understand the rest of it, but Dancing on a Volcano, really.
Yeah, but if you can understand the rest of it, what you're saying is we've got an album here with one good song on it.
No, I'm just understanding you don't like it, because it's,
right.
It's twee.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll come round to dance. I haven't listened to it. I think maybe what it is the Peter Gabriel thing's gone.
Mm.
And Peter Gabriel added a level of interest, The great thing about The Lamb is the subject matter is quite interesting, sort of thing. The story's quite interesting, the epic form and stuff like that. You take that away, and it's an important part of Genesis.
Yes.
I think that's suddenly gone away, which that's their unique selling, their unique thing. I mean, the music itself is absolutely, is really good, but for me that was the strongest element and the bit that drew me to them the most. And when he went, which is really surprising because I'm a big Peter Gabriel fan.
It turns out you're not a fan of his solo.
No. But when he went, I sort of, I thought, oh, okay, that's gone now.
And that's the thing, Trick of the Tail, which is one of their best albums. It's really clear how the Peter Gabriel has been taken out. It's still, it's still selling England the same style without the Peter Gabriel, literally.
Yeah.
And
which I would have thought would come again. You mentioned the Charterhouse. I think that comes from their Charterhouse education. They've obviously had a classical education, which means I'm well versed in all this stuff. It's probably quite a natural subject matter for them to go into, which gives them something that no one else has got. I mean, you've got messing about with Buddhism and
they don't understand it.
They don't really understand, but these guys have been brought up in it.
So Milkman from Accrington. Oh, I like this.
And anyway, I think it's good enough for Steve Hackett to say,
you won't listen to me.
Yeah, I can. It's obvious that I can do this without you. And then you've gone and made an album practically without me.
Yeah.
And
then they did it again.
Yeah. Screw you guys.
And then the next album, right? He had 4 songs. Right, Wind and Wuthering. He comes along with 4 songs. And he pushes for them to go on the album. One of them ended up on the album, and it's fantastic. Blood on the Rooftops. Actually, it's not normally said. I think that's the best thing on the album, on Wind and Wuthering. Although there's epics and things on there. People talk about One for the Vine. Actually, Blood on the Rooftops is the one I want to hear now. And Watch Gorilla, which was the thing Phil was pushing for, which is it's fusion basically. He persuaded Tony Banks to do fusion. That was coming in as well, and that ended up on the album instead of one of his songs, and it should have been 2 of his songs. Out of 9 tracks, 9 tracks. If he had 4 songs, 2 of those should have been on the album, and that's why he left. And apparently what he did, he told Mark Rutherford and Tony Banks, I'm leaving, that was easy. I think while Phil was on his way to the studio, he saw Tony Banks, he saw Steve Hackett, and Steve Hackett said, hello, yes, I'll see you at the studio in a minute. He didn't tell him, because he knew Phil could persuade him to stay in the band, because Phil was obviously just must be a very sociable individual.
Yeah.
Thor's the cold nature of Tony Banks and Mark Rutherford. Yeah, of course he did another album obviously because he had all that other material after Wind and Wuthering, and so he said, well, okay, screw this, I'm leaving then. So he went, did another album, Please Don't Touch. It's a much more complete album. It feels much more like an individual artist who makes his own work. There's no one as good as this. And I don't think he made anything as good as this again. I don't think. I've not heard a lot of his stuff actually, but I don't think so. I think this is the thing.
He's still making albums, isn't he? He just released one not many months ago.
Yeah. He's done a whole load of big Genesis live stuff as well, because Genesis weren't doing it. I think he was making a point there as well. On the, I think I've said this before, but on the recent documentary, you got the 5 of them doing their thing, and you can tell it's very difficult to get Phil, Because Phil at that point had all sorts of personal problems and all sorts of crap going on, and Phil is the richest one. Phil is the one they need to get. Come on, do it. But there's a thing. I think when they get to his solo stuff in the story, and he makes comment about, sorry guys, I had all this material, I had to leave. Just the look on Mike Rutherford's face of real resentment. And then for the rest, he's not in the rest of the rest of they don't talk about his stuff, it's cut out. And then he's gone. He's not in the rest of the documentary, it's just there's pictures of just the four of them. When I say just the four of them, I'm with Peter Gabriel and no Steve Hackett. So I think there's a thing there, there's a resentment. Because, the three of them obviously have lost their respect. People don't respect them because they went pop and all that stuff. And so people see Steve Hackett as carrying the mantle, and Peter Gabriel's off doing something different, isn't he? So, I bet that really annoys them. Must have annoyed Tony Banks because he wrote most of it, and yet now people think, he was on Invisible Touch, wasn't he? He wrote I Can't Dance, whereas Steve Hackett he left on the last. Duke is great as well, and actually even self-titled Genesis has good stuff on it. But the last classic Genesis of that style album is Wind and Mothering, and that's when he left. It's like he held the mojo, which may not have been true because there was a conscious decision to change.
Well, I mean, Genesis were just below top 10. You got Pink Floyd. I mean, they must look at Pink Floyd and go, "What the fuck? How did they? Nick Mason." They didn't have that album. It's just one album that that sold bucket loads across the world.
Yeah.
And people would have investigated their their back catalogue, and they would have been bigger than Pink Floyd. I would have said, because their back catalogue is actually better.
Yeah.
There's not so much dross in there.
Yeah. But that's the thing with Genesis, much more consistent actually, and it was just an ascent. And the thing is, I think the last good album is the '83 self-titled album, which is a good album. There's one terrible song on there, but the sales just kept going up. It happens with every band. They lose their muse, particularly if they've been touring and making tour album. It's just normal, isn't it? So of course, I Can't Dance isn't as good as The Lamb. Of course it isn't. But the sales, up till Invisible Touch, they only went up. They never went down. So it's not surprising that when they got the other guy in and all that stuff in the 90s that they gave up, because it was like, the sales have gone down. What? So that's strange. But of course they lost their muse. Oh yeah. Whereas obviously Pink Floyd is just a complete enigma, a one-off.
Well, they managed to hold it together. I think that's the key thing with Pink Floyd. Although there was an incredible amount of resentment within the band, they managed to keep it together rather than people buggering off and doing solo projects and stuff like that.
But Roger Waters didn't leave after Dark Side. That's the thing, isn't it? Roger Waters didn't leave after Dark Side, and he was tempted and he was scared. But then again, Peter Gabriel didn't write all the songs. So it's a different thing, isn't it? Roger Waters did write all the songs. Peter Gabriel, he wrote only that much, 10%.
Anyway,
I don't know. How many eggs do you think it is?
4 eggs, I think.
Okay, yeah, 4 eggs.
Because there is. I mean, for me, I know you say 1 and
8.
8 is, but the standout song on the first listen is "A Tower Struck Down," simply because it's slightly heavy.
It is. Yeah.
But when you look at it, it actually plods.
There's a lot of arpeggios.
Yeah.
And that's why some of it feels like bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And some of it's complete and some of it isn't. And there's not quite an album there that I think, even though it's all great, there's not quite.
Yeah. I should imagine when you're doing a solo album like this, you actually find out where the gaps are in your ability, that you don't realise someone's filling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to actually make an album to find that out.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, because the next one is more complete. It's not as good, but it is more finished and.
I think 5 eggs would be a bit over the top.
Yes, it would. Yeah. I think the first and last tracks for me are 5 eggs, but the rest of it isn't.
Yeah. 4 eggs.
4 eggs.
Does that mean we're only doing one Steve Hackett?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's right. I think that's right. We could always go back to them, but I don't think it would. I don't think so.
Yeah.
We've said all that in now anyway. So next week, the big fight. If you didn't already know, I failed to say last week. I was just so ill I couldn't. It is Iron Maiden versus Metallica in the 80s. That's the plan. One of the reasons is we make fun of Metallica. I like Metallica jokes. It turns out I'm not the only person who does Metallica jokes, which I didn't realise. It's this thing. Everybody does it. But those first four albums are brilliant, and that's we should acknowledge that. So we'll do it in an interesting way by choosing random Iron Maiden albums to compare them with for no reason. I'm quite decided which ones yet, but we'll find out. We're going to do 4 because there's 4 albums and they're all great.
I wonder if we should get some suggestions on the Iron Maiden albums.
Probably, yeah. You'll probably be wrong though. Only I know really. Right.
Okay.
See you next week.